Hey, hello, hi. Welcome to and we're back to the EquiTheory podcast. I am your host, Jill Treece, and on this week episode, hot start. My neck is white, and my makeup is not. So I apologize. You can see on my shoulders, a little sunburnt. Working on that tan and or melanoma. Hopefully not. But anyway, this is a chaotic intro, but. This week, I kind of want to talk about Azula. I've said in several episodes so far that I could talk about her all day long, and so I'm gonna hold myself to that, and I'm gonna give it a go. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. Okay, so Azula, what on earth could we talk about? Well, I think it is only appropriate that we start from the beginning. So, if you guys have seen my I got a new horse, I bought a filly video, whatever, I kind of went over her story there, but since this is a podcast, I can actually get into things a little bit more. So yeah, let's do that. So once upon a time, my boss, I work on a horse farm, right? Also, if you don't, did I introduce myself? I'm Jill. I'm the host. Whatever. There's a cat. This is Walrus. Walrus. Okay, he's being shy. Anyway, I'm Jill. So chaos ensues. That's this episode so far. But I'm going to try and stay to somewhat of a timeline on this episode because it's a simple one. I can do that. Maybe. Anyway, so I work on a horse farm for my boss. She breeds and raises / acquires race horses and, puts them in training and sends them off to become race horses. And so she has a lot of homebreds here. She has a lot, and I say a lot, but I'm thinking grand scheme of things, not all running at the same time. She's had a lot, but usually only 2 to 3 at a time. I think we only have one running right now. But anyway, so she knows a lot of the racetrack people around these parts, and I'm not sure exactly what the situation was with Azula's damn is the word, D-A-M, not the expletive. Her mother, damn, is named Lady. We decided to call her Lady. So I'm not sure what the situation was with her people entirely, but I know that they were, or I believe that they were kind of tight financially, and were like, hey, we've got 2 mares and 2 foals, and they're both bred back, and we just need to lighten our load a little bit. So would it be possible for you guys to take this filly that we have? We haven't been able to lay a hand on her. She won't let you touch her. She's feral, unfriendly, and the mare is super sweet. Would you guys just take the filly, and then whenever the mare is ready to foal out, we'll take her back? And we were like, okay. So we went to their place with Sunny is my boss. Her big long, I think it's a 3 or 4 horse living quarters trailer, but it has a ramp and it's got a lot of space. So we used it to haul mares and babies a lot. So just because it's big and open on the inside. So we pulled up with it, and we were thinking this is going to be a disaster. This filly won't let anybody touch her. How are we going to get her on the trailer? And so we get the trailer all backed up and everything, and sorry, I'm still dealing with a lot of allergy type stuff. I'm choking on my snot. Love that. So cute. Anyway, so we back the trailer up, get it all situated, and grabbed some panels to connect kind of to the back door to make a chute from the little paddock that they were in that would kind of direct traffic into the trailer. And so we we got that all set up, and then we went just to kind of get acquainted with her. And we walked in there, and Lady, the mare, super sweet. And the filly was like not having it, would not let you come within 5 feet of her, was like, absolutely not. Get away from me. And so then we went to their neighboring paddock, which had another mare and another foal. I'm not sure why they weren't together. I would have put them together. And this mare and foal were super, super sweet. So cute. Both of them were all about being scratched and like, just, they were just all about it. And so I even like jokingly said to Sunny, I was like, why can't we take this one? And she was like, they're keeping this one because they like it. The other one is not good. And what was funny was at the time, like before we got there, I had been binge watching Avatar: Last Airbender on Netflix because I watched it growing up on Nickelodeon back before streaming services. And so I grew up on that show and I loved it. It was one of my favorite shows ever. And I always am like looking out for potential horse names because we always have babies or new horses off the track or rescues. So we always have different horses coming in. So I kind of have to keep like a Rolodex of potential names. And when I was watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, I was like, man, there are a lot of really cool names in here. Like Sozin's Comet would be a cool name. Or I started watching The Legend of Korra after that. I'd already seen a little bit of it, but I hadn't seen the whole thing. I think I watched it on Prime or something. And like Pema was a name that was mentioned. And I was like, that would be a really pretty name for like a docile, quiet mare. Sorry, I'm trying to mute all my devices. I forgot to do that. And so anyway, I was just thinking about names and I was like, I really like the name Azula. And when we got into the truck to go pick up this filly, I said to Sunny, I was like, I've been watching this show that I grew up on. That was a big part of my childhood. And there are a bunch of really cool names in it. And there's this one name that I really like. And if this filly's cool, then I'll give it to her. And she was like, oh, you're saving that one? And I was like, yeah, it's a good one. And she was like, well, what is it? And I was like, it's Azula. And I told her that before we pulled out of the farm to go look at her. And we got there and, the whole ride there, I was like looking up, the details and stuff. So Azula's dam's name is I Am Superior To, Too. And she is her sire, her father, if you're not familiar with horsey terms, her sire is Afleet Alex. And I strongly encourage you to like pull up a video of Afleet Alex. That horse is cool. He, like in the Triple Crown, and I'll preface this by saying I am not a racehorse person. I don't know a ton about racing. So if some of the details are not like how you might explain them if you were a racehorse person, don't judge me. But so from my understanding, the Triple Crown has the Preakness, the Belmont, and oh my God, what's the other one? I forget. There's a third. But anyway, so the Preakness is the longest one. And Afleet Alex, I think it's been a minute since I saw the video, but I think a horse kind of like drifted in front of him and it tripped him. And he's tripped pretty good and like not quite falling down to his knees, but nearly. And recovered and then just was like, I'm over being in the pack here. I'm going to get out in front of everybody. And he won by quite a good distance. Just a lot of heart and determination, like a really, really cool horse. And so I had a Breyer horse when I was younger of Afleet Alex. It's in the pose that Zenyatta's in. I also had that one growing up. I was obsessed with them because they were bay thoroughbreds, and all I've ever had is bay thoroughbreds for the most part. And they're very much my type. And so, yeah, I have the Afleet Alex Breyer horse, and so to get a mare in that is a literal daughter, normally when you get like relatives of the big name racehorses. It's like a great, 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 great granddaughter. It always makes me giggle when I'm on OTTB Connect and somebody posts their horse's pedigree and they're like, oh my God, he has Secretariat. And I'm like, everyone has Secretariat. He is the Genghis Khan of horses. And so, it was cool to have one that's so closely related, and she looks so much like him. And so Azula is the granddaughter. And so her grandsire is Afleet Alex. And I thought that was pretty darn cool because I have a prior horse of him. And then we got the filly in, and I decided after spending, like when we first got her, she was very scragamuffin-y. And I guess I should finish telling my story. When we got there, she had like shed it out on her shoulder and her chest, but her back and her hindquarters and legs, like she had the fuzziest full coat ever and looked like she needed to be wormed. And she had a tick on her, like in her armpit of her front leg that was making it swollen. And, but you couldn't get near her. So how are you supposed to worm her? How are you supposed to get the tick off that's making her armpit swell? And so I was like, these will be things that we'll be addressing. And so, surprisingly, because Lady is just so good, she walked right up into the trailer and Azula went right behind her. It was not an issue. So loading them was super easy. We pulled into the farm, unloaded Lady, and walked her into a stall. We had a big like divider wall that we could push over. So it was like a really big stall that Zoe was in stall rest for when she had kissing spine surgery and colic surgery. And hi, Wally. So Azula and Lady were in there, and we didn't know what to call Lady because her race name was I Am Superior To, TOO. What? Like, what are you supposed to call that? And so the agreement was that we would just take on the filly, and then Lady would go back to the people that owned her. But so we were thinking it's a short-term thing, and I would be like, you're such a good lady. And Sunny and I didn't know what to call her, so I was like, why don't we just call her Lady? And she was like, cool. And now in hindsight, we're like, I wish we had picked a better name. Like, that's less, just her gender and or our assumption of it. And so it's like we would have picked something that's a little bit more unique than that if we thought we were going to keep her. And so she just is the best. And Lady honestly is a sweet enough name that it fits her. She does remind me a bit of the dog from The Lady and the Tramp. So yeah, anyway, we have her, and they ended up letting us keep her. They were just like, you know what, keep her and the baby inside of her. We just need to unload. And so which it worked out nicely because we didn't want to wean Azula super early. And we really weren't forced to when Simba was being born. It had been long enough. I mean, she pretty much was on Lady's side for the duration of Simba's gestation period. And I think Azula got weaned at 8-9 months. So we did fence line weaning, and it was like a really non-event. Nobody got upset, and it was just easy. And so when we ended up taking the mares away, they were like, okay. And the babies were like, all right, whatever. We haven't been hanging out with them anyway. So, which is the way to do weaning. And if you guys are interested in an episode on that, I'd be more than happy to deep dive into the research on that, because wow, is it not practiced super well. But anyway, so when we first got her back to the farm, she, like I said, had a tick on her armpit and just looked super scraggly. And our vet said to power pack her with dewormer. So essentially to do it 5 times in a row. And that's what we did. Except that was up to me because she was untouchable, and I had to be able to touch her first before I could address her health issues. And it wasn't like we couldn't just, go straight in there and shove her in a corner because I was like, I'd like to be able to touch her again. I'm going to have to do this 5 days in a row. So when she first got there, I spent probably an hour in the stall, just, sitting on the ground, letting her sniff me and investigate me, and working up to being able to get closer to her, just really scratching on Lady and letting Lady be her like social reference, that she was super okay with it. So it's totally fine that you let me touch you. And so, yeah, I can't remember exactly how long it took, but it was pretty quick that I was able to just yank the tick off of her armpit, which was like the best feeling ever, because I was like, oh, I did it. I was able to help. And she let me. And then I could scratch her shoulder and stuff. She was really weird about her head for a long time. Still, the only thing she doesn't really like is for you to touch her mouth area. I think her whiskers are just super sensitive. But everything else she's pretty chill with. But it took a while, and then I started working with her on being able to deworm her, and I kind of just did what I could with that because I had to do it 5 days in a row. So some days it would take me 10 minutes, and other days it would take me an hour, and I would have to resort to sneaking up on her and getting it done. But she never had like a super offended reaction or anything. She was always like, okay, whatever, you win today. And then after that, I started with her halter training. And so I had experience with Astro and Dexter so far, but those were babies that came straight out the womb and had been handled and knew me and were much more open to me doing things with them. Azula was 5 months old and had not been touched by another human, and she had presumably gone to breeding centers and stuff with her mom, and or been separated from her mom while she got bred back to Moonshine Malin, who is Simba's sire. And so I don't know what all happened in there, but she was either separated or traveled, and I can only imagine that was quite stressful. And with nobody being able to touch her, I'm sure there was a bit of force used in order to touch her and like move her around, get her on the trailer, get her separated, things like that. So, she just didn't have a fantastic start, but it's a typical start. Not that that's justification, but is what it is. So, it was a process, and she came around, but not as fast as Astro or Dexter did. They were pretty easy to halter, but I had that experience. However, now I was working with a horse that didn't trust me at all and was significantly older and had a lot of opinions about things. But I filmed the whole thing, and it's up on my YouTube channel of working on haltering Azula. I did a really good job documenting her process in the beginning, and that kind of fell off. But started with haltering and then leading and hoof handling, doing things like that. And just over that process, I kind of just accidentally fell in love with her. And also, I forgot to mention with the naming thing, I was like, what if her race name, because she was my boss's at the time, I was like, what if her race name was Afleet Azula? That sounds really cool. Like Afleet Alex, it's a Nafra. And if we're going to name her Azula, the AA being a Nafra, if you're not a grammar nerd, you don't know what that means. So I was like, that's such a cool name. And Sunny was like, yeah, that name rocks. Let's do that. And so we got her registered and everything. And then I started like really, really connecting with this filly, and on a level that I hadn't ever connected before. And so it was like, this seems bad because she's Sunny's. She's going to go to race training. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, all the positive reinforcement training that I'm doing with her just feels kind of not great. Like, here's the thing, right? So as a positive reinforcement trainer, I would like for all horses to know it, at least in some capacity, that most things can be trained that way. And, it is a kind way to train. The horses really enjoy it. And it keeps stress, or it can keep stress a lot lower than traditional methods. But it felt not so great to know that, ow, don't bite me. Rude. He's over here begging for pets and then bites me. What is that? You punished me. And for what? Anyway, so it doesn't feel great when you know that at, the November of their not even fully like yearlings. Well, no. Yeah. No. Okay. So going into their 2-year-old year, that November, most of our babies are born in March for reference. So they're like a year and 8 or 9, 10 months maybe. So coming 2-year-olds, they go off to race training. And so for me, it was like, okay, great. I can halter her. I can catch her. I can lead her. Beyond that, I kind of hate to do any positive reinforcement training because she's just not going to understand. And like, I hate to introduce her to this way of training that is so kind and where she has an opinion and a choice, and then to throw her into an environment like racing. And I'm not dogging on all racing. I know that some trainers and some barns, some owners are really, really diligent and active and like care a lot. And my boss really does care about how her horses are treated. But when they go to the trainer at the track and the trainer has grooms and jockeys and people working under them, the information kind of gets lost. And so the treatment is very hard to control unless you're there all the time and seeing what goes on. And so we have some hard and fast rules, my boss does, like no ear twitching, no this, no that. And so there is that element of it, but how much of that happens and how much doesn't, I don't know. And so I was just like, man, it sucks because I want to do all this training with her and I really connect with her. And it would be so exciting to have a young horse that I trained from the ground up that has only ever known, me and not these bad experiences and not my bad training, my new science-based, connection-based, training that I've come to choose because I've really evaluated and studied, not because of just what I'm being told. So I was like, that would be so cool, but she's going to go to racing for a while and that's going to kind of disrupt that. And also I hate to get her started on that and show her this way. And I don't know if that's wrong-headed or not, but it felt kind of futile, I guess. And I talked to several other trainers about it and they were like, well, at least she would know it or she would be better prepared than most. And I was like, okay, so that's why I did the hoof handling and stuff. But beyond that, I was like, it's just, I don't want to teach her one way and then have that be wrong. Like, here's an example. Okay. So I was lunging Wiley yesterday. Wiley's our big 18-hand Appaloosa guy. He is so cool. He is a Russian warm blood. I was lunging him in the arena and I was just asking him, not even really lunging, just asking him to walk around me at a distance because he hadn't been in the arena before. It'd been a while since he'd been ridden. We're bringing him back into work after having some foot issues. So I was just having him walk around the new arena on the lunge. And when I would ask him to walk on with the lunge whip, just lift it a little out to the side, he would flick his haunches away from me and stand and face me. And I have lunged a lot of horses and I have lunged a lot of horses under a lot of other instruction. And sometimes when you're lunging a young horse, you'll get them going and they'll get about halfway around the circle. And it's almost like they pick a spot that they start turning to face you and they'll be going along trotting or cantering. And at that spot, they'll turn and face you. A lot of times what happens is the lunger walks in front of the shoulder and kind of blocks them. So then they turn and face you. But even if they haven't been taught that, a lot of horses will just kind of intuit that. But Wiley, I wasn't doing that because I pride myself on being a very good lunger and watching their body language and mine and how I'm communicating. But with him, he kept doing that. And I was like, I know I'm not walking in front of you. I would almost be like having a driving line almost behind him. And if I lifted the whip at all, he would throw his hind end away from me and turn and face me. And I was like, oh. And I thought back to when I was younger at my very first barn that I ever started riding at. My trainer there did a lot of Pirelli, and I can't remember the name of it, but I know that there was one of their games or practices or whatever, their MLM levels, is like, I forget the name of it, but it was like a hide your hiney game. So like you walk to the horse's hindquarters and they should yield them. And sometimes the yielding was like pretty aggressive, moving away from you to the point where their hind end is like running away from you while their front end is relatively stationary. And Wiley was like really doing that. It was very obvious. And I was like, okay, you're not being disobedient. Not that I ever really approached training like that, but I do think that a lot of people might have interpreted that as him like challenging them or being like, I'm not going to keep walking, or you are asking me to pick up my pace or to keep walking and I don't want to. I'm going to turn and face you, and might have taken it as like obstinate stubbornness. But when I tested it and when I started asking for that, hide your hiney situation, he was very good at it. It was very clear that it had been trained. So I was accidentally cueing that. And I didn't know that because I don't train like that. And I was just asking him to walk on, not throwing the whip at him or like making it snap or, hitting him with it, just like lifting it out behind me. I hold the top end of the whip coming out of my, like, if you're holding an ice cream cone, I'm doing this for audio listeners. If you're watching, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're holding an ice cream cone, the butt of the whip comes out the top where the ice cream would be, and where the cone is where the whip comes out. I hold the whip as if I were riding with it. And then, so I have my line and I keep it between my ring finger and my pinky finger, just like I would a rein. And then I hold my whip as if I was riding. And then I just sort of lift it out to the side instead of, I hate when I see people lunging with the whip like directly out, because then I feel like it's always on and it's not good. And I like to keep it away from the horses because I don't love training off of like, oh, I'm scaring you a little bit here. But yeah, so anyway, with him, I totally tangented, so sorry. So with him, I was accidentally cueing something based on what somebody had taught him previously. And so with Azula and the wanting to train her with positive reinforcement, I didn't want to train her to do something that somebody might accidentally cue or might misperceive, or if they went to pick up her foot and asked with pressure and she didn't know to give her foot that way, but she knew how to give it another way, I didn't want them to be like, oh, this horse is being disobedient, when in reality they're just not asking in a way that she understood, because that's not how she was trained. I don't know if that makes sense. I think it does. Anyway, so I was just kind of like throwing my hands up also, because I was like, this sucks that she's even going. I don't want her to. But so what happened after that is I got her going with the basic type stuff, and we got her microchipped and everything, which was a horrendous process because at the time I was not like I've never done a microchip before, and there's like a specific place you have to put it in. It's a pretty big needle. And so I was like, I'll let my vet do it. And, she had to have it for jockey club registration purposes. And, when we did Simba's microchip, my vet literally walked up to him over the stall door and went thunk, and it was in. That was it. Azula doesn't work like that. She was very suspicious and not into it, and it was kind of a disaster. And the vet tech ended up taking her from me because I refused to be mean to her. And she was like, oh, this filly's terrible. She needs to learn some manners. She's feral, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, you guys are just being really aggressive and like walking up to her like she should just stand there like a robot and not react. And she is a little bit more reactive. And so they eventually they got it in, but it wasn't pretty. And then I was like, great, all my hard work down the drain. And she did not forget. She does not like my vet still. And I had to give her her annuals this year myself because he doesn't just, I really wish that some clinicians would be a little bit more like keen to introduce themselves to the horses. I know that they see a lot of horses and it gets old and they have a lot to do. They're stressed. It's not a fun job. It is like probably one of the most heartbreaking, emotionally, physically exhausting jobs, being a large animal vet. But I just wish, especially with new horses, if they would just take the time to let them sniff their hand, introduce them, rub their neck a little bit, and just like be like, I see you. Hi. Nice to meet you. Like before proceeding and poking and prodding and all of that, I really think it would go a long way. But that tangent aside, we got going with her, and there was one point where I was like, I'm not going to work with her because I know that I am too invested with this filly. I like her too much, and she's going to go to race training, and I don't need to be a part of it because it's just, I can't mentally. And so, because like normally I'm really good at working with other people's horses and not getting attached, but for some reason I got really attached to Azula. And so I put some distance between myself and her, and I didn't work with her for a while. She was handleable enough, and I was like, that's it. So moving forward, we moved her up to a field that was pretty close to my house, and then I ended up hanging out with her a little bit more, spending more time with her. And then when we moved farms, she walked up on the trailer grate. She was super keen to like participate, do whatever. And then I just kind of started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Seriously, after the track, she's mine. Like, I'm going to take her after the track. And then when we moved out here, she ended up getting injured and cutting her shoulder open, and she was on stall rest, and I started working with her more, and I was like, man, I wish there was something I could do. And I had talked to Steph K Equestrian on Instagram, who is a fellow trainer of the positive reinforcement breed. And she came out with some of her clients to look at, if you guys remember Sterling, who is now Stippling. He's our little Appaloosa colt that we had. One of her clients purchased him. And when she was out here, we were talking about it. And she was like, well, I think we might have actually had a phone call after the fact. She was like, have you like offered to buy her? And I was like, no, actually, I haven't. Could I? And I was like, Steph, I'm going to have to let you go because I got to think about this. And so I did. I sat down and I thought about it, and I was like, I'm not financially independent at the moment. My parents are kind enough to stay supporting me, and I'm working on getting there, but it is very difficult. And I'm sure that some of you are like, yeah, you're telling me I am financially independent and it sucks and it's hard, that I'm in debt. And so I'm fortunate enough that I do have my parents' support. But even with that, like, it's still hard. And I run out of money some weeks, and I'm like, I need food and I can't afford it this week, and I don't ask for more. And so, like, they pretty much pay my rent, phone, and gas at the moment, which thank God for that. Because gas prices are woof, I hear. But yeah, so I'm really, really fortunate in that way. It's embarrassing to talk about, and part of me like doesn't want to include that in the episode because I'm like, what a child you are. But I'm working on it, and that's why last night I moved the podcast over to Anchor so I can start making money that way. And I'm still in grad school, and so I pretty much just went straight from undergrad to graduate, and this fall I'll be starting an actual job with that, doing my practicum stuff. So this is a really long-winded justification that is a result of my insecurity of talking about not being financially independent at 23 years old. But it's hard, man. things are expensive, and I am lucky enough to have their support, and so I'm taking it instead of being in debt out of pride at this point. So please don't judge me. That's all I'm asking. Anyway, so I totally forgot what I was talking. Oh, okay. So I was like, it seems unwise to buy a horse, another one, when I don't even own the one that I already have. My parents own Zoe. And so I talked to them about it. I was not looking forward to that conversation, and they were very encouraging about it, which I was not expecting. They were like, if you think it's what's best for her and you think that's a good investment, then yeah, I think you should do it. They were like, if she goes to the track, you run the risk of her having a lot of the issues that Zoe has, like her weaving or her kissing spine, or not that that's necessarily a direct result. It sure didn't help. But like the weaving, the bobbing, the anxiety, the ulcers, colicking, and like having that as an early start to life, they were like, it seems, and also the risk of injury just in general at the track, and being started so young. They were like, it makes sense. If you're serious about this, then I think you should do it. And I was like, whoa, okay, awesome. Thank you, supportive parents. The heck? I wasn't expecting that. Love that. Not that they're not supportive, but they are fiscally responsible. Is financially, how are those words different? That is a question that I don't know the answer to. But anyway, so I had some money saved and ended up going ahead and purchasing Azula, and now she's mine. And that was very stressful, and I immediately had a lot of anxiety and like post-purchase regret and like, oh my God, what have I done? And it's very stressful. I don't recommend doing it before you're financially able. And yeah, so I don't know, but I'm very happy that I did at the end of the day, because Azula is she's just different. She is so special to me, and she really feels like the first horse that I have not like actually chosen, but chosen for myself, if that makes sense. Like I said in earlier episodes that Zoe and Bo and Dragonfly and Bingo, they all kind of appeared out of convenience more so. Like Bingo was at that Pirelli barn that I started out at, and he was the school horse that I liked the best, so we bought him. And then Dragonfly came next, and after I moved Bingo to a barn with an eventing coach, she was like, if you want to participate in eventing, you need a horse that is a little bit younger and a little bit more talented, because Bingo was in his early 20s. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool beans. Let me do that. And so we went to Holly Hill in Louisiana, and Dragonfly was there, and I tried him. Bless you. While he's sneezing. That's so cute. So I went and I tried him, and I liked him, and we bought him. And then Bo, we went to Florida, and I actually really hated Bo when I got on him, oddly enough. All of the school horses, or not all of the school horses, all of the horses that I tried when I was in Florida, I really didn't like, except for this one horse. But we were told he was 13, and when we vetted him, he turned out to be closer to 20. And I was like, oof, nope, no thank you. I don't know, like, horse people can be very slimy with sales. And so it was like, if you're being dishonest about that and that far off, when the vet was like, it's very obviously, an 18 or so year old horse. And the people, we knew that to be skeptical. But regardless, Bo was like the only one that was sound and not out of our budget. And so I had actually asked to get off of him, because when I was trying him, because he scared me when I was 14, and when we got done, I like just absolutely I don't, it just manipulated my mind to say that I liked this horse. I basically gaslit myself into it. And I was like, no, I like him. That's who I want. But truthfully, I just didn't want to leave without a horse and be trying to horse shop in Arkansas. It's just dreadful. So I bought him. I ended up falling in love with Bo. Bo was very special to me, and he got me started with everything social media wise. But then Zoe also kind of fell into my lap because she was a project from Sunny, and she was really talented. And the lady that bought her from Sunny wanted me to compete on her because she originally bought her for herself and then was like, I'm never going to ride her. She's too young, too spicy. You do her better. Why don't you buy her? And so we did that. And so like all of the horses that I've had have just kind of fallen into my lap. And then I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So I have one. But Azula was the first one that like I actually really tried to stay away from because I didn't think it was a good idea. I didn't need a second horse, and let alone a young one, and one that would need time and attention when I'm in a master's program and like trying to get my life together. And but I just have this connection with her that I can't really explain. And it genuinely, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, if I were in the Black Stallion movie, the Black Stallion would be Azula, because she is that kind of horse that like, and when she's older, obviously, and it's more responsible, like I could get on her and gallop her bareback on a beach because I know her that well, that I would actually trust her enough to do that. Zoe, I do not trust to take the bridle off. And that has a lot of background to it of the holes in our training. But like Azula, I know that I can get there with her. Like there's no doubt in my mind. She just gets me in a way, and I get her in a way, and we work so well together. And I was trying to explain it to my boss, and she was like, no, yeah, it's obvious. Like other people can see that as well. And I was like, what do you mean? And cause I mean, you always like it when people are like talking to you about what you're good at or whatnot. And so she was telling me about, or we were together out in the field deworming all the horses. And of course, Azula wouldn't let me deworm her, which was awesome. Had to do it at a later date. Cause once she knows that you're trying to do something, she's like not about it. It has to be like a proper session. I have to ask, because she is a lady and she is intelligent and she demands that she be treated as such. And so, anyway, we were deworming everyone, and we were all at like the front gate, and they're in a really big field all together, all the horses. And so we had dewormed everybody else, and I had tried for Azula, and she was like not into it and was running away and then coming back and then running away and then coming back. She was like, you can pet me, but you cannot deworm me. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'll do you later. And so we like got in the golf cart and drove, to the other side of the paddock to go, or the pasture to go to the other pasture to deworm the mares and whatnot. And when we got done deworming them, Azula was right there on the fence line, and she's just staring at us. And I was like, the whole herd, her entire herd was way, way over the complete opposite side of this field. I wish I could give you an estimate, but I'm terrible at estimating distance. I don't know how far a mile is. It could have been a mile. It could have been 10 yards. I don't know. But a really big field, complete opposite ends from her entire herd. Just my filly by herself staring straight at us. And we drove out of the field, and then she starts like trotting the fence line with us. And so I was driving the golf cart. So naturally I stopped and I got out and I was talking to her and petting her and whatever. And my boss was like, that is just nuts. She's 2 years old. She like, you would think she'd want to be with her herd, and she came over here with you because you changed fields. And we drove behind the little shelter, and the second I was out of eyesight, she took off back to the herd. And there have just been a lot of instances like that I'll be out in her field and we'll just go on walks together, and she's comfortable leaving everybody as long as we're together. And I I just feel differently about her than I ever have about any other horse. There's some sort of pull to her that I really can't put into words. It's just a feeling. And she has this energy about her that is just addicting. And in my last episode or 2 episodes ago, I talked about how she just has this authenticity, like she knows who she is and she's very sure of herself and she's strong in that. And I really admire that and respect that in her. And so I really think she already has been and is going to continue to be an amazing teacher for me, that like about how to work with a horse while respecting them, allowing them to have a voice, while you are also allowed to have a voice, and respecting yourself, and like, you know, how that works as a relationship, not as a dictatorship, you know. And so really cool, really exciting. I love that filly. I could go on forever just about how she just has this energy about her, and I know it so well. Like, I wish I could put it into words that don't sound super corny or lame. But like, it feels like a soul I've known before. So sorry, science people. I know that is not a super scientific way of explaining it, but I know things about her that I shouldn't know. I wish I knew how to explain it better. I can just really predict what she's going to do past a point of what would be normal. Like, I know how she's going to feel about things. I know how she's going to react to things. I know just if she will, if she won't. And I receive the energy. This is so hard to talk about because I feel like I'm being ridiculous and like totally anthropomorphizing and like making it hippy dippy mystical. But I really, it's something I've never experienced before. And I don't think it just boils down to me having a relationship with this horse and like having paid attention to her. I think it's deeper than that. And when she gets anxious, I feel it, and she can feel when I'm anxious or when I have a plan or a mission. And she can also tell when I want to hang out or if I just need a walk. And she just we have a relationship that is unlike anything that I've had before. And we also have a cute little handshakey thing where she walks straight up to you and she'll present her left shoulder and she'll walk her head past you and stop with her shoulder like at hand height, and you just scratch her shoulder. Her head is like behind you, and sometimes she'll scratch my back with her nose. And if I don't start scratching her shoulder, she'll hook me with her leg. And that's not great, but it's cute for now. It won't be, and it's a bad behavior, whatever. Shame on me. Tisk tisk. Anyway, it's something that I haven't experienced before, and she makes me really excited about training in horses when I'm not excited about training in horses. And like yesterday, I had a really bad morning, and I was like, I'm not into this. And so I was like, what would make me feel better and decompress? Like I went up to my house for a little bit and got a drink of water, something to eat, and then I went back down and kept working. But I just kind of wanted to do something relaxing, and I was like, I think I'm just going to go mess with my filly. And so I got one of the hands-on gloves that has like a curry comb built into it, and her halter. And I was like, as I was walking out there, I was coming up with a plan, and I was like, working with food reinforcement, I have to separate her from everybody else because Zoe will dominate that. And I can't work with her with food rewards because Astro will also be all over me. It's dangerous to work in a big herd if everybody's not aware of the rules. You know what I mean? So I was like, maybe I'll just stick with scratches for now. I don't know why it hasn't occurred to me before, but let's do that. And so I went out there with her halter and a glove. It just keeps my hands a little bit cleaner than having black fingernails that get stained from dirt. And so I went out there and walked up to her, and she was like, oh, hi, and walked up to me, and we met in the middle, and I started scratching her all over, and she kept like kind of scooting forward, like with her hind end like moving its way to where I was scratching. So I like to kind of just like stay scratching in one place and let the horse move around, or I step back and hold my hand out, and whatever body part they put in my hand, I'm like, okay, I'll scratch there. And they pretty quickly learn that you'll scratch wherever they're asking. Sometimes you have to adjust high, low, whatever. But she's scooting back towards her bum, and I was looking under, and we have a tick problem out here for real. So if you guys have any like tips and tricks on how to keep ticks off of the horses, short of like putting flea collars around their fetlocks, which is what I'm thinking about doing. That's a joke. But she, in between her udders, in between her back legs, there was a tick the size of a blueberry, like a genetically modified large blueberry. It was disgusting. I have a serious issue with ticks, like a serious issue with ticks. I think in the hoof handling video that I did with her here on YouTube, you can see me like digging in her ears because I was itching her ears for her, scratching them. And there was a tick in there, and I freaked out. That I like seriously have a phobia of them. I got seed ticks at one point in my life. I have Rocky Mountain spotted fever from ticks. Like, I don't do ticks. I have a reaction that I cannot control. Thankfully, I was wearing the hands-on gloves, so I was like, I don't have an issue touching it as long as I don't touch it for very long. But I couldn't do it with my bare hand. Like, no. I used to be able to. Now I physically cannot bring myself to do it. Anyway, point being, I got it, and then I was like scratching where it was, because tick bites are itchy, and she was lifting her back leg for me to scratch in there, and it was funny because Zoe will not let me touch back there. She got better about it with positive reinforcement, where she would tolerate it. She'd still like lash her tail a little bit, but she wasn't trying to kick me like she used to. But Azula, on the other hand, is like, oh yeah, get in there. It's itchy. And just had her lip going and was very into it. And so that was cool. And then I started working with her on haltering, slipping it over her ears, buckling it over her head. Started just intentionally being a little bit more clumsy about it, just because I have kind of been treating her with kid gloves this whole time that I've been raising her. And it works, but other people aren't going to treat her like that. So now that she knows those things, I'm like, okay, I can be a little bit more oopsie daisy bumpy with the halter, not anything that would hurt her or scare her, but just getting her used to not everybody's going to be very careful and diligent all the time. And just being able to slip a halter on, easy peasy. And she was really, really good about it. She let me pick up all 4 feet. Awesome. Wonderful. She's 2 years old. She should be able to. And then I walked over to this, I don't even know what it really is. It's like you can see it on my Instagram. I also made a TikTok of it. I was standing on this concrete well thing. It's like built into the ground, and it has a little metal handly thing that comes up that I guess you could like tie a rope to and have a bucket and go down, but it's only like, it's not deep at all. So I don't know why that is there. Maybe it used to be a well and it got filled in at one point. I don't know what happened, but anyway, I'm standing on the edge of it, the out of the ground part, and I just like called Azula walked over there, and she followed me, and I was standing up there and I was leaning over her, scratching her with a hands-on glove, and then I just stepped back and started doing it with my foot. And then I set my heel on her back and then on her butt, and like just having my leg resting on her. And she was cool with it. Started scratching her with it. And she left at one point to chase my dog. Her and Mila have a relationship. They love to play with each other. It scares me so much for both of them. But Mila's never like violent about it. The horses sometimes are, but Mila's very fast, so I'm not super worried about it. But they play back and forth. Mila's a German Shepherd, just so we're clear. She's not like a little dog. But they play, so she just like started walking after her, and then she stopped to graze, and I was like, I wasn't done. So I said, Rue, come here. And she came back and just walked over to me and lined herself up. And so I started scratching her again. So I think we're on the right track to being able to, like when she's older, to be able to start sitting on her and getting used to things like that. I'm not going to do it while she's a 2-year-old. and not while she's a 3-year-old. I might sit on her, but I'm not going to be like riding her, walking her around. And if anything, it would be close to when she's a coming 4-year-old. So like not right when she turns 3 like Zoe was. I don't want kissing spine again, but horses' backs don't fully like develop and set until they're 6 years old. So we have plenty of time. It would just be nice to I just would want to do it. So when she's coming 4, I'll probably just sit, but we have a long time to go before then. But for now, it's nice just to be like, yeah, you're cool at that. And just preparing for those things. Like, can I just scratch your back? Can I scratch over to the other side? Can I maybe like when we're on the ground, can I lay my body across your back? And just, habituating her to those things, getting used to me doing human things, and reinforcing her all along the way and never doing it to a point where it's making her nervous or scaring her, things like that. So it's been a really cool experience working with her and like learning the ropes of working with a young horse, because I've only ever worked with young horses that are broke to ride, at various levels, but they know how to go under saddle. So Azula's my first, I did this all by myself. Nobody else has handled her in the way that I have. And so, yeah, that's my story with Azula. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. I'm trying to keep these to around an hour for the sake of uploading, and my software's development speed is slow. So anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about Azula's story. She is just a magical little creature, and I'm so lucky to have her in my life. I think that she is marvelous. Hopefully I didn't miss any of the details, and if I did, you can see all the pictures and videos that go along with the story in the video that I did, like the littler YouTube video announcing that I bought her. But yeah, she's mine. I'm enjoying her, and at the time I was like, man, I really wish I had the podcast going when I bought her, because I was like, this would be a great episode. But here we are. It's a little bit late. I bought her 3 days before my 23rd birthday, and her birthday is on January 4. So she turned 2 pretty early, but oh my God, April? And it's almost May. And then we have June, July, August, September, October, November, December, and then she'll be 3. That's crazy. I mean, that's a ways away, but still. Baby. And Zoe is 11. She's 2011 model, if you will. So she'll be 12 next year, which is just absolutely crazy, because I started riding Zoe. I met her when she was 3 and started her after the track. It's just crazy. But anyway, if you guys want to be able to keep up with the podcast, please subscribe and follow wherever you're listening to / watching this. You can watch it on Spotify now also, just so you know. But you are also, if you are interested, able to follow us on Instagram and places. You can find me at JETEquiTheory everywhere, and the EquiTheory podcast has an Instagram. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep the Facebook page up just because of cross-posting issues. But that's that. And I think that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to go ahead and end this one. Keep it under an hour. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.